can you take a moment to expand on your statement that Freakonomics is a little dubious? I listen to some of their podcasts regularly and find them at least interesting. Definitely interesting. It's just that there's, the idea that, for example, I mean, it's been a long time since I, talked about at least the book. I don't know about the podcast. But, for example, the association with abortion and crime there's not a lot of evidence about that. There's a lot more evidence, let's say, about lead. And even that, we're never going to know exactly. But there's a lot less evidence about that.
This from the American Scientist, just one quote. We and others have noted a discouraging tendency in the Freakonomics body of work to present speculative or even erroneous claims with an air of certainty.
Yes, and let's be clear. I mean, that's the thing, is that that's also sort of, as a broader point, the lie about economics. Economists present themselves as scientists as opposed to social scientists. And then even then, it is a lot of their stuff is ideological, despite the fact that they disown that their basic premises come from an ideology.
It's the worst kind.
Yeah, and frankly, I'm I'm skeptical of claims that ascribe crime to anything other than social and economic conditions as created by the government.
I mean, I'll tell you, if you look at the data nationally and internationally in terms of lead, and we should say, abortion would be downstream from that.
Yeah, right, but it's perceived as secondary or secondary. I mean, lead poisoning is directly the result of, I think, under regulation and government malfeasance. But I don't want it to be. Sometimes I think an over focus on it unnecessarily pathologizes people.
Well, I mean, in this case, brain damage is a pathology. I mean, it is. I mean, this was. We know for a fact that lead is a neurotoxin. We know for a fact that people who live in low-income housing are far more likely to be exposed to lead because these apartments have not been remediated. On top of that, we also know that lead aggregates in the brain. And so you can all have a baseline of amount of lead that you're exposed to, but if you're in another situation that exposes you to a little bit more than that baseline, it can literally, and I think we just had a more recent study too that showed that it can impact and impacted IQ tests and
What are you saying the thing about the bar fights, or is that separate? That Atrios was talking about the bar fights.
Well, yeah. That, I mean, that's just an observation. But when I was bar fights used to be a big thing, and they don't happen as much anymore because I think part of it is you can it is.
Wait, what are you talking? You're just not in bars as much.
I mean, that's true, but are bar fights still as much of a big thing? I mean,
I imagine they were. I think my impression is a lot of violence. It was worse in when you were growing up than maybe now.
I mean, definitely. And I think a big part of that was people. Well, this is just observational, but the things that are not observational is that 20 years out from prohibiting leaded gasoline, whether it's in this country or internationally, you can see a marked drop in crime. I still think Kevin Drum when he was at the Washington Monthly wrote the definitive piece on that, although there are others. There's no way to know, but that's it.
I mean, well, violence has gone down in general, so that does fit well,
And as to Freakonomics, Marxist economics would be where I invest my attention personally.
Marxist economics, whatever that podcast is, you should run to go and
Marxonomics.
Freakomarx.